All righty. Good morning. Happy Wednesday. It is unbelievably the last Wednesday of March.
Where is the
We are,
time going, Nate?
I don't know, but can we figure out how to make the time machine and go back a little bit so that we can, I don't know, change stuff, but definitely get more time? And I don't mean time as in fall back like they do with daylight savings.
I know that's spring forward, man. I mean, you know, it was just St. Patrick's last week, and I'm like, wait a minute, it's gone already.
Right. So now we got to watch out Saturday for April Fool's Day. And hopefully, Congress and Senate's not going to pull and Biden any April Fools on any of these reform issues, hopefully. But yeah, we're right here, and that's why I'm wearing this today because baseball starts tomorrow. We're
Oh
back into
man,
baseball season as of tomorrow,
oh, that's good.
right? So that should be more warmer weather. People outside, you know, people hopefully getting that sun, feeling better. Because I'll tell you, I know that we don't want to go through April too fast, but in May we've got Mental Health Awareness Month, and I'll tell you, there's a big outcry. I'm seeing it a lot of people with mental health issues. There's no
Too
doubt.
many.
Yeah.
I think the stresses of society is getting the best of a lot of people. Um, this is a time where we sit back. Where everyone's going through something.
Oh yeah.
Everyone's going through something, whether it's with their personal health,
Uh-huh.
a family member. Um, I just had a close friend that just passed away. And when you reflect on life and you look at these things, it has a certain weight that can just pull you down into this really, really dark space. So it's just really important to understand that life has its ups and downs. It is a thrill ride. Um, and it's the American Scream Machine. Um,
Right.
when you actually look at it, if you take a page out of Six Flags, um, you you just have to keep it in a perspective. And I think for what we're doing every day, well, not every day, but every week with the podcast, we're just trying to get people to look at options and resolutions to maintain optimum health balance through use of cannabis and CBD. So I think it's a tremendous opportunity to keep putting it out there for the people who listen and tune in, so that way that they know that there are options and resolutions that are out there that are safe.
No, absolutely. I know I've had a couple of friends reach out to me in the last week or so about CBD and whatnot because of this podcast, but they're asking in terms of for anxiety, for being able to sleep better at night. So I know we're reaching an audience that otherwise didn't know much about it. As we learn, they learn. But one thing I would definitely like to mention to people, and this is human nature, and unfortunately, since you just had a friend that passed, and not saying that your mindset was there, but as a human, when these things happen, what's one of the first things we think? Could have, should have, would have. I wish I'd reached out to him more. I wish I'd spent more time. I wish I'd whatever. We're all busy. We're busy
Mhm.
constantly. But I
Yes.
encourage everybody, try to take a moment to check on people, to see how they're doing, and just don't take the answer of I'm okay, I'm fine.
No. No. Absolutely. And that's one of the things that with this 420 campaign that we're doing, that we want to offer some more health resources
Yeah.
at that festival. It's just because it's needed.
Yeah.
Um, there was a horrendous act that just happened a couple of days ago with the school shooting. And I just had to ask myself what was really going through that person's mind, what really could have been in their heart, their mind that compelled them to do such an act.
Right.
Where you act against innocence. Children are innocent of all things. They came into this world and they have to brave this world and grow and mature into a responsible citizen, a person that's balanced, presence of mind, presence of action. But you can find yourself off balance a little bit, and I just hate that that happened. That had to happen. It's a true tragedy for the families that's involved, and
Mhm.
my heart goes out to the family.
No, absolutely. Two things touching on that. One is, as what we found out so far, they are saying that they had some mental issues, but they also were a student that graduated from that school. And on top of that, they had just graduated from college as well. So the appearance of the individual looked like they had everything in front of them. Everything was great, but obviously that was not the case.
That's why we need more positivity and love in the
Mhm.
world. I can't emphasize that enough. Um, you can have a bad day and you still just got to try
Yeah,
to talk it through and encourage people. A lot of times in that darkness, you only see the darkness, so you only say what you see. But sometimes you can actually put some light on it and be positive. Um, it's a tough, daunting task to do that, but at the same time, everyone needs balance, and what we
right.
have to do is just keep putting the word out to seek alternatives, um, and not seek violence. And we definitely have to fight hate with love. We can't fight hate with hate. Gotta fight hate
Oh,
with love.
absolutely. No, absolutely. And two things real quick before we get into our notes for today. One thing that I heard this week, and I think this is absolutely true. People always talk about you can't take it with you, cars, money, whatever it is. There are, well, one thing, honestly, there's one thing that we enter the world with, and there's one thing we leave the world with, and that's love. When you're born, you're surrounded by love. And when you leave, hopefully you are surrounded by love. That's it. Everything else is in between, is a filler. Those are the only things that we have when we get here, and hopefully the only thing we take with us.
Yeah, exactly right. And the meaningfulness of it is within our hands. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we can come up in a very bad environment or a negative environment, but also remember the other side of negative is positive. So
Yes.
you can seek an opportunity to change the circumstances. You have to be a strong person to do so, and then even then, you don't have to be the strongest person. You can have a
Yeah.
good village. You can have a good support group. So having good friends is really, really important, and knowing that your ideals coincide with your friends' ideals. If it don't, you're in the wrong place, and you'll be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And we don't want people to be in that situation. We want them to be in a better situation.
No, absolutely. And to feed off what you just said, I want those who are listening who are going through issues. Remember, asking for help is a sign of strength. You're realizing, hey, I can't do this by myself. I need a support group. I need someone else to help me to be strong. It's not weakness, it's strength asking for help.
Absolutely. But you got to remember something. We had Don Sizzle on the show,
Mhm.
and that was turned into a weakness against him.
Right. It
Um, and
was.
and people pushed him to suicide ideation until he actually tried to commit suicide. And we're at a place in time where there is more on our shoulders as we plug into the world. And sometimes the pains of the world, the desires of the world may be too much for you.
Right.
So you do have to take those in a level of moderation. You can't take in too much. You have to create some form of balance so that way it's not too much and it doesn't weigh too much upon your heart or your soul.
Yeah, absolutely. And for example, and a lot of my close friends know I absolutely love music. Music is a big thing to me. I love listening to it no matter what, when, driving the car, whatever. But somebody told me something the other day that really hit to me. When you're happy, you enjoy the music, but when you're sad, you understand the lyrics. Now, think about that for a minute.
Right.
How many times do we hear a song, but we don't grasp its meaning until it touches us for whatever reason? Music, hey, I love it, but music can uplift you or it can bring you down. So even it can be a tricky thing.
Absolutely. And then you take those circumstances when it comes to the the sounds, the sounds itself. It can give you that feeling. So you got to seek that sound that's upbeat, that adds the colorfulness to life, and then that way, as you are consuming your cannabis or smoking your cannabis, you can now wind down and feel that balance that you need. So the plant has those things that will give you those feelings. It'll take the edginess off of life. So we wanna definitely give emphasis to that.
Absolutely. So all those out there listening, first and foremost, I would say recommend Bob Marley for that.
One love.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
I mean,
yeah,
it's warm outside. It fits with where we're going in the seasonal direction. And honestly, his music fits with where we want to be as a society, honestly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry,
So
my
you're good. So yeah, I recommend everybody, hey, take I don't know what, let's do 10 minutes a day. Start 10 minutes a day. Just listen to Marley. When you're getting ready for work, when you're driving the car, that ought to get your day starting really well. Now, I don't recommend smoking the Marley while listening to the Marley when driving, but I would definitely recommend listening to them. So let's get
Absolutely.
into a few things here. All right, a federal CBD bill. So a lot of our listeners have probably heard that and recall the Food and Drug Administration, of course, the FDA, declined to issue regulations for CBD, calling on Congress to do so. Which aren't we seeing a lot of back and forth? You, he, them, they, we should, maybe. So last Friday, Representative Morgan Griffith, a Republican out of Virginia, and Angie Craig, a Democrat out of Minnesota, stepped up to the plate and introduced two bills directing the FDA to regulate CBD products using current regulatory framework. The FDA has dragged its feet in properly regulating CBD and hemp-derived products on the market, creating confusion about legal uses. So
And
where do you
this,
think this is going to get us?
yeah, and this is in the state of Virginia. It's a Commonwealth state.
Well, it's
Um,
Minnesota too. These two have come together here. One from Virginia, one from Minnesota, and they're trying to work together, Democrat and Republican, both sides of the aisle, to introduce two different bills directing the FDA to regulate the products.
the products do need to regulate.
Absolutely.
Um, we need safe dosages, and it also needs to be in proper packaging. It needs to be in packaging that children cannot confuse with the things that are in the market for them as well. So we definitely have to regulate the packaging
Yes.
as well.
But now here's a good one from Kentucky. How about this? Lots of medical cannabis news this week, and they'll start with Kentucky, for example. Residents of the Bluegrass State will be able and have been able to use medical marijuana since January when the governor executive order went into effect. The governor had called on legislation to enact the legislation on this topic, and the Senate did so last week. So the prospects are looking good for the bill to pass the House, as it has passed in prior sessions as well. So the Bluegrass State is going green.
Finally.
Yes, thankfully. You know, state by state, step by step. But like we talked to, everybody's going through issues. We've got to move along faster. Honestly, we need to hyperspeed this thing into faster passes in the Senate, the House, the states, all of it.
Yeah, obviously, again, it still falls back on education of the
Mm-hmm.
leadership that's in place that's passing these laws. Um, if they still have an a biased opinion regarding cannabis and CBD, it makes it tougher to pass in the legislature, and it's make it tougher for the public to be able to benefit from this when they're passing laws against it.
Correct. But see, now the flip side to Kentucky's positive, Kansas. The bill died in the committee for medical marijuana. Senators voted to table the measure after the hearing, featuring activists on the pro side, law enforcement on the con side. Laura Kelly, a Democrat, a supporter of the proposal. Now, Kelly is also the governor, urged voters to contact their representatives to please reconsider the measure. So right now, Kansas has basically set it off on the table and said we're in a holding pattern. So we got good news in Kentucky and a delay in Kansas.
And you know, it still starts with law enforcement. Law
Yeah,
enforcement still has that old mentality. Hey, you're in
correct.
possession of it, you're going to jail. Um, until there's a reform on the law enforcement basis, that is the police that enforce the laws in that local community and state. It's going to be a challenge.
You're right.
Um, and when you go to what happens in the courts, well, of course, on the law enforcement basis, it creates waste if you're just putting somebody in jail for possessions and so forth. So it still goes back to who is the top legislator in that state and why are they still looking at it that way?
Well, you bringing up the waste is a good example there because what some people may not understand, and waste on that is going to be multiple levels because not only are we taking up room in the prisons, we're using tax money for court dates for those to be incarcerated. So, of course, their meals, their medical, anything that's involved in that, when we could use that towards either not just others that could be possibly in jail for a heavier offense, but honestly, maybe those tax dollars can be used to help people with mental issues or other things to help society other than cuff hold society.
Absolutely. And I think that as you deeply look into some of the pushback that's going on with law enforcement right now as they become more militarized,
Right.
you're spending millions of dollars on this equipment to eradicate humanity. It's instead of saving and helping humanity, you're literally oppressing it
Right.
by militarizing the police. And I see that it is a deeper issue. Um, the weird thing, it's kind of like a paradox when you look at if there's an emergency call to 911
Hmm.
and you have an individual who is acting violent, but they have mental health issues, who do you send to assist
Right.
with that issue? Do you send the police to be there as support? Do you send mental health professionals who now are putting their lives at risk? How does that work? How do we
No,
come up
and
with a reasonable resolution?
no, I mean, that's a great thought process because of the fact that, you know, you've got so much on the line there, so much gray. We've seen many times, for example, whether it be in a movie or television show or in real life in terms of the news, if you have a hostage situation, you send in a negotiator. Don't we need to have somebody that's taught to negotiate with these people in a certain form to try to help them instead of sending? And now I'm not knocking, there's a lot of officers who help. So I'm not sitting there, we're not knocking them. I saw one the other day where literally a vet was attempting to commit suicide. The officer showed up, got him a free ambulance, but sat there and talked to him for 20 minutes to calm him down before sending him to get the help. But let's also be honest, whether it's closely in their shift or whatever, just like we as people sometimes get irritated, the officers do too. And if they go in that wrong mental state to begin with, they can now exacerbate and make that issue even bigger and beyond where it currently is. So I don't have that answer. I don't know that answer.
No, you're absolutely right on that. There has to be a little bit more thought and insight put
Absolutely.
into how can you handle those type of calls. We all have, as I said earlier, a dark moment where
Yeah.
things are not going well, and desolation and despair can really kick in very deep in those circumstances. But you always have to see the light at the end of the tunnel. You have to have that hope that things are going to change. You have to have that hope that things are going to get better. But for the people that can't get past that point, they need the help. They need that hand extended out to them, and they need someone that's confident and know how to do that. It's just unfortunate that there are some extreme circumstances where healthcare professionals can be put at risk if they are dispatched to assist someone with that type of a problem. Number two, you need the family member
Yeah.
available as well to assist with that problem as well. And what if it's a parent who has a child who may have a mental instability mitigated with drug use,
Right.
um, so,
Alcohol,
so
any of it.
or alcohol. So now you have a situation that's modified even more, um, and it has to be looked at and prepared the right way. So once again, still calling 911. There is no true resolution to
No.
assisting and helping when we need more mental health professionals. But at the same time, we have to change the public at large on how they make those calls.
Right.
Um, do you create a database that would, if anyone had any mental health related issues, do you put them in a database so that way that the support services can be in place for them? But by putting them in that database, you put a stigma upon them as well.
Exactly. That's what I was just thinking because, for example, with some of the work that we've done, let's talk there for a minute. You have a bar, a lounge, any of these places. If they have a issue, and when we say issue, we're not talking, a mental issue inside with a guest. We're talking, for the most part, some form of violence, robbery, whatever it may be. Every time they call 911, there is a mark on them. And after so many marks, they change the way they look at them in the community, and they can have problems with them in terms of permentation, keep their business open, whatever. And we're using that as an example because, like you're saying, the stigma. Okay, well, this is John Doe. He's called us 7 times in the last 6 months. He hasn't done anything. So this isn't going to be as big of a deal. Don't worry about it.
That is, that's a good point. I think that when you when you look at it in that perspective, um, community engagement is really important
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that you are doing things in the public right away.
Right.
And as long as you do that, you can get the support that you need.
Right. So, no, I mean, it's a great topic. It's a topic that needs further discussion, not just from us, from our, you know, medical people, from our mental advisors, from our police, from our governments, from everybody. We really do need to try to figure out a way to come together and make the system work, because it's a great point, but I don't have that answer. I don't know the answer.
The one thing that I can actually say, and I have a presentation coming up soon,
Mm-hmm.
regarding public safety. There's a particular awareness that even as a business owner that you should have when it comes to safety, and you should
Right.
have that at the same time, as an individual citizen. There are certain things that you should just know if you don't go to the community meetings or your NPU meetings, to understand what's going on. You're you're technically lost.
Yeah.
You don't have no direction of where to go and what to do. You're totally lost. Now you have to guess at your best case scenario to get out of that situation that you're in. And
Right.
sometimes you may make a detrimental decision.
No, absolutely. So, hey, bring this up in your meeting, because these are some points that could go right into what you'd be discussing. I think it's a great thought process. It's something we definitely need to get that ball moving towards. And at the same point, we've heard this before, just like in the cannabis issue, we need to stop moving the goalpost. The goalpost needs to be where it is, where we know that line is, how, when we get to that line, we've crossed the line for success instead of keep moving it further away.
That's true. And that's also understanding fundamentals. There's
Yeah.
fundamentals to everything in life, and you have to know at what level and what point you are when it comes to applying those fundamentals to your life. So that way it looks like success. It feels like success. It feels warm. It feels good. It feels inviting. It attracts the positivity to you because you're doing positive. Those are
No,
all the things that go
absolutely.
into that.
Yep. So, hey, when you have that meeting, let's throw that idea out and kind of see where we can go, if anywhere. It's a good thought process.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I've got something I want to bring to you that's very interesting. We're going to District of Columbia, DC. The DC Medical Cannabis Amendment Act officially went into effect this week. Among other provisions, the bill allows patients to self-clarify and set up a process for on-license established, aka the gray market, to obtain licenses. Now, how interesting is that?
Yeah, self-certify.
Yeah,
Patients are allowed to self-certify to set up a process for unlicensed establishments. That's the gray market to obtain licenses.
right.
That is that's sketchy. It's very sketchy.
Well,
It allows
it.
them to obtain a license,
Mm-hmm,
but will law and legislature observe those licenses?
correct. And if
That's
it
my
is
question.
self-certification on licensed, remember that's what it says, a process for on license. So they could literally at any time make up their own thought process, their own mind as to what they clarify as legal, on legal, gray market, non-gray market, whatever. So one day you could be saying, "Yep, go ahead, you can do this, you can sell that, that's not a problem." Next day somebody else comes in, you know, give you a great example. Different idea, great example though. Walmart, we all know how Walmart has self-checkouts, correct?
Hmm.
So now, Walmart, for example, if you do self checkout, you have 3 different options: print your receipt, text your receipt, or text and print your receipt. Now, keep in mind, they have somebody by the door, just like Costco, Sam's Club, all those checking your receipts. I had one lady, I asked her, I said, so if I press text only and I tell you that, what are you going to do? She goes, I'm going to tell you, thank you, have a good day. I can't, there's nothing else I can do. It's like, okay. The next gentleman, the next time I went yesterday, I asked the same question. He goes, I'd look at your phone. I said, well, isn't looking at my phone technically an invasion of privacy? I don't have to show you what's on my phone. You presented that option. He goes, no, that person's just being lazy. Well, right there, I have two different mindsets, two different things that A, Walmart set it up that way. And B, what if I refuse to show him because you don't need to see what's on my phone? Isn't that invasion of privacy, which I'd like to know from a law standpoint if that's true. But at the same point, you're the one that set those parameters to begin with. You've already given me two different examples. Which one do I follow? And if I tell you, no, you're not looking at my phone, are you now going to, even though I legally did it, are you going to try to say that I'm shoplifting because I won't let you see this? Could that be some of the same ideas, even though a different scenario altogether? I know, but thought process.
That's a tricky situation. Um, because now you definitely, from a law standpoint, you're infringing on somebody's rights.
Right.
They have a right to privacy, without question.
Right. So, as most of I wanted to ask them because I was curious what their response would be. I mean, I print the receipt anyways, but I want to know, hey, so if I said this, what are you going to do? But kind of the same idea. If I've got Officer A coming in and saying, yes, that's okay because you're on license, but it's self-clarified. We allow this, we deem it, no problem. Then Officer B comes in tomorrow and says something completely different. Who do I believe? Now, I'm going to be the one that's in trouble, not the officers, correct?
That's correct. And the consistency of the law is going to fall in the same direction.
Mm.
The law itself doesn't truly favor um, the licensing of the product.
Yeah.
Um, and if it's in a gray market without a seal from that city or a seal from that state
Right.
indicating that it's legal or that the state has endorsed it, you run into a problem. That's almost kind of like a driver's license without the state seal of Georgia on it.
Yeah. Like these food trucks who have set up improperly. Maybe they're following all the serve safe protocols, temperatures, times, holds, all that stuff, but you don't have your documentation for the city state. You're an illegal business,
Absolutely right.
So anybody that is considering this in DC, one, we'd love to have you join us and talk about it. But two, keep your documentation, please. That's the only way you're going to CYA, as they say, to be honest. And even then, I can't guarantee that's going to keep you safe. But I'm just saying that's the only way you can try.
I do have some friends in DC, Maryland, that are in the industry.
Okay.
I'll try to get them on the call for
Yeah,
next week.
absolutely. Because next week is April, isn't it? What happens in April? What day do we have in April that is tied in with cannabis?
420.
How about this? Temescal Wellness, I may have said that wrong. They're an outlet in Massachusetts. Guess what they're doing this year? April
What is
20th is one of the biggest sales days of the year for cannabis dispensary. We don't doubt that, which makes
no?
it all more surprising that this particular outlet announced that starting this year, 420 will be a paid company holiday.
Oh, that's
How
big.
about that one?
Oh
Right.
yeah.
So, they're going to, and I'm sure they're still going to be open because that's going to be a huge day. So at that point, does that mean A, time and a half, and B, those who aren't there are getting paid for it? I would assume so, but hey, I think this is spectacular. They are trying to emphasize and make it not only payment to make it important for their employees, they're trying to make it an actual holiday beyond just what we recognize it as. I think this is a great step. I completely commend them.
What they're doing there is they're adding validity to the date, along with the incentives for the people that are working.
Right.
That day is a tremendous day. It's a profitable day for them as a business. And all they're doing is they're giving back to their employees as they rightfully should.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. And could this be a trend that we see multiple dispensaries, multiple businesses, multiple all these things that are going to move forward and do this differently starting next year?
I can see it.
I think it'd be
Definitely can
great.
see it. Right.
I think it'd be spectacular that we can do that. But we start talking about 420, people who partake in it. What happens a lot of times? You get what? You get the munchies, right?
Absolutely.
Now, hold on. Everybody don't freak out, but I got an interesting article for you. Ben and Jerry's trades ice cream for cannabis. So wait, Ben and Jerry's is completely getting out of the ice cream business? Do you think that's even possible? But the reason why I'm saying that is because Ben Cohen of Ben and Jerry's is telling a story about smoking pot because we're on a Zoom call. The idea came about when I was camping on a trip with a friend of mine, sitting around the fire, smoking a joint. And we were saying, wouldn't it have been nice to have pot like the old days? Okay. So the idea Cohen is referring to named Ben's Best Blends, BLNZ or B3. Just launched company as a bright, bold cannabis brand that offers low THC pre-rolls and full spectrum vapes. Much like his endeavors in the ice cream, Cohen set out to use B3's platforms as a conduit for which he refers to as social benefit, which I agree with. Here's what's interesting about it. B3 is registered as a nonprofit. Okay. 100% of its profits are split between three entities. 10% will go to Last Prisoner Project, which we've all heard about, we're familiar with. An organization, if you don't, that's dedicated to freeing individuals impacted by cannabis criminalization. Another 10% will be donated to the Vermont Racial Justice Alliance, whose mission is to secure sustainable power, ensure agency, and provide security for American descendants of slavery, ADOS, and the remaining 80% will be administrative and partnership in the new project as grants to Black cannabis entrepreneurs. What do you think about that?
That's definitely some equity for Black cannabis entrepreneurs. Um, the opportunities are limited, and just because the cash is not available in the community.
Right. No,
So any set
absolutely.
aside, that can be done to create equity on the table is very tremendous, and I
Mhm.
commend them on their efforts.
Well, and again, like we talked about before, we need to find out who it is, and he's taken a step above and beyond. I highly commend them for this. Thank you. But we need to support those who support this industry, whether it be through clothing, food, any of these things that these companies, even if they don't sell it directly, which he's now looking at doing, they don't sell it directly, but they're an advocate for it. Let's help sponsor their business to try to help sponsor this business.
No, it is a great write off for that business first and foremost because you're giving to a nonprofit that's
Yeah.
giving opportunities and set asides for people that are at a disadvantage.
Oh, exactly. Because Cohen, the latter initiative seeks to rectify the massive gap in generational wealth brought about by the systemic oppression of Black people in the United States. Now, the average Black family has 1/10 of the wealth as the average white family. He says, I feel like business ownership is one of the best routes to gain generational wealth. I agree 100%. I mean, look at these billionaires. They didn't do it as a whole. Granted, Mark Cuban's a little bit different, but as a whole, name these individuals, and it doesn't matter to me whether it's white or Black. They had something to begin with that helped set up that generation wealth. Majority of them did not do it themselves.
Right.
you know. And Cohen worked with Pentagram's Eddie Oprah and Jack Collins to design the brand's visual entity, which includes packaging, website, and merchandise, which I'm going to later find out some more about this, post it on our social media so you can help support them. The brand is designed and transparent in its celebration of Black designers and vendors who are also listed on B3's website. As a Black designer who is well aware of the industry's whitewashed makeup, they were conscious of involving other Black creators to build the brand's visual language. Trey Seals, founder of Vocal Type, designed the brand's three primary typefaces: the expressive Bernard, Martin, and Ava. Not really sure much about them yet, but each typeface is inspired by demonstrations that defined what equality could be. So we'll have to keep an eye on that for sure.
Yeah, he's definitely put a lot of thought into the support, and I definitely commend him on that. A lot of people wouldn't do that level of a set aside where you've created a 501c to actually give back equity, and is it he's given his own form of reparations
Yeah.
back. So definitely commend Ben and Jerry's founder.
Right, because like for example, the brand's packaging spotlights the work of Dana Robinson, who Ebony reprinted a series of sorry, reconstructional textualizations of the 1950s and 60s ads from the magazine by smearing and layering print into monoprints. And Opera says, I remember as a child in Britain, my cousin used to bring Ebony magazine to my house, and this is the only time I would see Black people in advertisements. Now, that was the 50s and 60s. Yes, we've seen that things have changed, whether it be on the TV, print ads, whatever. But I mean, it's a great example that, let's be honest, there's a lot of parts throughout the world that you don't see it as common. America is getting better, I think, but we're still not seeing it as much as we should be. I'd say we are more now in the last, 3 to 4 years than we were in the last 30, 40. But it brings up a great point. It's not equality on advertising. And that also is whether it be body types, whether it be race, skin tones, anything. We're not seeing equal advertisement to draw in equal consumers.
Absolutely right about that. And I think um, as you take from one business to the next, what Ben Cogan is doing there, if we can get more entrepreneurs in each state to at least make that type of an effort, we can
Right.
create more equity and opportunity. To one, not only balance out the market, but we want everyone to receive the benefit of what the plant can provide.
No, absolutely, because we need to, see how it can be made, how it can be treated for people. We need more studying. We know all these different things. We've got to see what can help, how it helps, and make it pass. And that first thing is by rescheduling. We've got to schedule it from a 1 to a 3. Absolutely, no doubt.
Absolutely. That's the only way. Because law enforcement will not stop their actions against you if it's not taken off the schedule one.
No, absolutely, because this is interesting, and this ties in very well with what we're stating. Vegas, okay, Planet 13. We've been there. A lot of people know about Planet 13. It's Vegas' largest dispensary, okay? Guess what they did? They voluntarily gave up its liquor license so it could open a cannabis consumption lounge. Now, if you haven't been out to Planet 13 like we have, for example, when you go in, it's really, really interesting. I mean, it blew my mind. You've got your desk, you hand over the ID, they do their background, whatever it is, and then they give you a number to text. But while you're waiting during the daytime, they have a actual deli lounge in there. You can get food, you can get drinks, you can go shopping. They're giving up that liquor license so they can be a consumption lounge, which will be intriguing. If people are consuming cannabis, they're probably not drinking. Nonetheless, though, a leading alcohol industry trade association come out in favor of federally legalization marijuana and has sent a letter to Congress asking it to make it happen. And the alcohol trade group, Wine and Spirits Wholesalers of America, is the one who is favoring the legalization of the cannabis. The group wants it to be regulated in the same way as alcohol, and the letter sent to Congress explains what the group is asking for. Now, how about that, first of all?
No, that's pretty dope. Because as soon as you can get um, the opportunity for people to consume in a lounge, forget alcohol. This is all about the cannabis.
Right.
You shouldn't mix it anyway because you have two different types of intoxication. I wouldn't want to know what that looks like or feel like.
Right.
So to be able to safely consume somewhere in a setting where someone can monitor your consumptions, make sure you're okay, treat you with the same kindness and respect as any customer would come in there. I think it's a great deal.
But not just that. Let's think about this, for example. And I don't remember when we were out there that if there is a minimum or whatnot. But this gives consumers not just in a safe environment, but think about it. You're a dispensary. They can literally buy the product, figure out what works best for them so they can be the continual customer. They get the right product, but you have somebody helping administer the product to make sure they're using it properly to begin with to have it be most effective for them as a retail and slash consumption all in one. So to me, that first of all was a great, great thing.
No, it is. And that was something that we talked about in a prior discussion of even if you're testing the product and you're not aware of its potency or how your body will actually react to it in a consumption lounge, you'll be able to still be in a safe place.
Right.
There's a responsibility that cannabis lounge has to its customers as well when you're consuming on property.
No, absolutely. And what kind of blew my mind is you're talking an incumbent business, usually would fight an effort that would open up competition. So for an alcohol company to come out and say, hey, we're in favor of this, we want to see it happen, and here's why, and we'll read some notes from the letter in a minute, that's unprecedented in this industry. Do you think that a tobacco brand company is going to come out and say, hey, we need cannabis to be legal, make marijuana legal? They're not going to do that.
Well, definitely, you know, when you look at it, this is the next big thing coming.
Yes.
So you you got to ask yourself, even if there's a business that has taken care of you for years, decades, that has set the standard of how you live and govern yourself in society, and you now looking at this up and coming product that has medicinal benefits. You may have used it, or you may have a story that's similar to mine, like I have with my grandmother. And
Right.
my curiosity with the plant has been fueled even more because of the medicinal benefits that's available. So coming from a space where I was not a user, not aware, and now that I can use it for balance and for aid, and to also help others that need that same balance, that same aid, whether it's pain relief. And if anybody's been in a car accident, or a very bad car accident, that
Mm-hmm.
you've probably been prescribed opioids at some point in your life. And if the option to have used any form of CBD that will give you any type of pain relief, whether it's a
Mm-hmm.
cream, whether it's a gummy, to help you with the pain in your joints, pains in your muscles, without having to take an opioid and not stress your organs to a degree to where you may succumb to you actually
Right.
taking the opioids. Um, that's something that a company that's benefiting can keep it real themselves. And you got to look at some of the companies in big pharma are now buying and distributing in cannabis and CBD products as well.
Correct.
So
Correct. And
it's all about an outlook.
no, absolutely. Because what I find interesting is they literally stated that it makes economic sense. The federal level alcohol has a monopoly on mind and mood altering substances that are legal to buy. Never mind the argument that alcohol is every bit as dangerous as many substances that we allow people to buy, or sorry, many substances that we don't allow people to legally use recreationally. It's legal. So the question has been settled. That gives producers of liquor, beer, and wine a massive advantage over the legal cannabis industry. If cannabis gets legalized on the national level, in theory, it becomes more of a competitor to alcohol than it already is. In Vegas, for example, consumption lounges are coming soon, but are not allowed to serve alcohol. So it's very interesting that they're bringing it forth in that realm, and they're stating that hey, you're got a monopoly already at the federal level on these mind and mood altering substances, which they do.
And the thing about alcohol itself, it's been legal now for what, over 300 years?
Yeah, yeah.
So it definitely has a huge, huge head start on cannabis.
Hmm.
So in order to get to where it needs to be equitable all the way across the board, it still goes back to the outlook, the mindset, and then the research. The research is going to validate it in the public right away.
Oh, absolutely. And here's some a little bit of from the letter. We've reached this position because the current conflict between the state and federal law is not only causing adverse consequences for consumers and non-consumers, so they're including both, but will also have a long-term public health and safety costs that are too great to ignore. 21 states and the District of Columbia represent roughly half the US population, have already legalized adult use cannabis. Yet the markets in these states remain illegal under federal legalization. This conflict undermines the rule of the law and weakens public health and safety while leaving states unsupported in their efforts to create safe, regulated markets and eliminate dangerous black market activity.
It's like they're trying to get you caught up. Um, it seems like they're really setting people up for a trap. And we're
Yeah,
gonna catch everybody that goes into that trap.
no, absolutely. Because more importantly, the trade group calling for the legalization that it's essentially asking Congress to put alcohol and cannabis on the same level, which I agree with. I think they both should be, honestly. And in many ways, that would at least level the playing field and create a more clear competition. I mean, it would. I think it would create a more clear competition, but I think that these are two, I don't want to say similar substances, but do have some of the same equalities. People drink to help with pain, to help with anxiety, whatever it is. But the big one of the big differences is alcohol is a depressant. So it might help get you here for a little bit, but then you're going to crash and you're going to be right back and maybe even a worse mode. Cannabis, yes, I mean it does do some of that. We've seen in low levels, but nowhere near the same effect. It helps. It makes it easier and better for people,
Yeah, it
and it's
attaches
natural.
itself. Yeah, it's natural. It's very natural. And I think when you think about the long-term effects of alcohol, you can go
Cirrhosis,
through sclerosis of the liver, and when you look at with the cannabis, there is still some more research that need to be done.
absolutely,
Um, in certain individuals, there are side effects from cannabis use.
absolutely, there
Um,
is.
I know I know that there's still more research that needs to be done, but at the same time, the resolution to it is to get more research.
No, 100%. Because at the same point, it's like what you're saying. That's why these consumption lounges are vital because you can have that bud tender there who can answer the questions, who can help monitor, regulate. Because one of the things, and we've all seen it, whether it be working at or visiting these places. Guess what? Bartenders are supposed to do the same thing, but do they? A lot of times, bartenders come down to the bottom line of my tip. You're over intoxicated. Guess what? It's on you to find a way home. It's on you whether you've drank too much. I'm not stopping you. Now, there are some bartenders that do, so we're not knocking the industry. But let's be honest, there are some bartenders who the bottom line is my money. I don't care whether they're too intoxicated or not. I'm going to keep serving because I want to make money.
Well, the bottom line is that the states have passed laws that hold the business operation and the
Correct.
license responsible for the person's intoxication of the state. Whether they were
Correct.
intoxicated when they came in, you should be able to deny them any more alcohol if they look or appear intoxicated. That's just number one. Number two, you should already know automatically after 3 drinks that you should be monitoring and just making sure that they're okay, even at that point. Um, it's a tough situation to be in because now the bartender has to put in discretion into their job when they're just trying
Yep.
to earn a fair modest wage. And their modest wage has to come from this person indulging
Hmm.
and also giving them a really good tip. And that's just
Right.
tough.
Absolutely. But there's also multiple other factors. For example, even if you've been through a tips training program, which I suggest every server and bartender go through it, there are certain factors that even being trained, you don't know. And those are things, for example, the medication. Do you know your clients that come in well enough to know that they're on this medication and they don't need to drink as usual? They don't need to drink as much. Do you know their sleeping patterns? Do you know what they've had to eat? Any of these things. These are not necessarily things that you're going to see physically by their emotions, by what they're doing, how they're acting, anything like that. And even bigger, for example, and when I worked in the industry, I always brought it up, females. When females are on their monthly cycle, their blood is thinner. Therefore, they become intoxicated faster. So you're telling me, even if you're a female bartender server, you're going to look at that female and tell that that's what's going on with them? No, you're not. But
Yeah,
those are things that affect it.
you hit it right on the head um, as you make that point. But I think what has to happen, um, the bar owners and operators, they have to operate and act more responsibly and more inclusive. Um, Still, once again, the law itself, um, it's very, very trivial because one step to the right,
Mhm.
you're definitely in trouble with the law. One step to the left, everything is fine and left as is.
Right.
So you have to walk that fine line, and then even still, if you lose balance, you're gonna fall to one side or the other. You don't want to fall right into the law, um, where now you go through fines, possibly incarceration, suspension of license. Those are things that can happen. So even when you're talking about the consumption lounges, you definitely have to set the parameters to
Absolutely.
operate them totally clean, so that way these situations, these are situations, and it can be a multitude of situations while a person is sitting in that lounge, and whatever feelings that they have, whatever they, what levels are they looking to be at as they consume, all of those things have to be factored out. It's almost like you got to go through a questionnaire.
Right. And remember, too, ignorance saying I didn't know is not going to be admissible in the court. They're not going to care.
Absolutely not.
So now a little bit more on that letter here, real quick. The current federal system of regulation of alcohol serves as a long, strong model for the structure that should be enacted the same for cannabis. This system is rooted in the principle that states are the primary regulator of a social sensitive product, but are supported by a strong federal system that regulates the product and interstate movement of the product. During and immediately after Prohibition, a significant black market existed for alcohol products. We've all heard the stories. Guess what? That's how NASCAR came about. If you've never heard that story, look it up. That's how NASCAR became what it is today, by running these products during Prohibition. It was cooperative between states and federal regulators that effectively ended the black market and created legal alcohol marketplace that has evolved into the global standard for consumer safety, marketplace consumption, and product diversification, of all of which provide benefits to the public. Keep in mind, too, one of the points they made there, here in Georgia, we may have a lower ABV, alcohol per volume, than California, Nevada, these different places, for example. So what he's saying about that is important, because maybe all states will sell THC, CBD, cannabis, any of these products legally. Doesn't mean they'll all have the exact same regulation on what they can sell, how they can sell it, and how much they can sell.
Yeah, it's totally true. It's totally true. And I think they have to adopt some things to, and I'm talking about quickly. This stuff
Yes.
should not be sitting stuck as um, a agenda that's being presented. They really need to put all of the laterals in place to protect the public, and we
Mm-hmm.
have to protect the public now, not later.
No, exactly. And he goes on to state that Congress has never shown any interest in taking up legalization efforts. That goes for the Senate, which is currently controlled by the Democratic Party and is generally considered more liberal on cannabis related issues. In fact, Congress has passed on a numerous opportunity to set federal guidelines for the sale of cannabidiol. The letter from the trademark group is looking to set federal legal framework for cannabis. It's not looking to take away the state's right to decide whether to allow legal consumption cannabis. In many ways, it's going to mirror the alcohol law, which, as we stated, vary by state, and some states have so-called dry areas where alcohol is not sold. We know one right here in Georgia, Georgia Southern. That area of Statesboro is a dry county.
Yeah, that's a very, very rare anomaly.
Absolutely, it is.
You don't see and find that regular throughout, because you still look at overall, it's a revenue-based system that's also heavily taxed.
Absolutely. No, absolutely,
Um,
because the state should maintain that flexibility to legalize or not legalize cannabis within their borders. They should be able to also regulate the product distribution, sell the product in the manner that best suits each state, just as they do for alcohol. That's another point that the trade association sent in their letter.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And they
And I
want
think
sweeping changes immediately, is what they're asking for.
I was just about to say that. Yeah, we definitely want to see the change sooner than later. The public um, needs to be in safe space overall.
Right? And I got a couple of pillars that I want to hit on that they included before we close out. But as he stated here, federal legalization should be done comprehensively. And guess what? One of our favorite words, not incrementally. And it should be, right? He even put that in the letter. It should be accompanied by the creation of a robust federal regulatory structure that licenses producers, testing facilities, and distributors. Doing so will ensure product integrity, establish the appropriate tax and the trade practice requirements, and protect public safety while providing leeway for states to tailor additional requirements in these areas to suit local needs. Now, these are the four pillars that we'll close out on. The federal permitting of cannabis products, importers, testing facilities, distributors, federal approval and regulation of the product, efficient federal tax collection, efficient federal guidelines, and other measures to protect public health and safety. And those are the pillars. Ultimately, we believe the societal cost of inaction is too great, and the time has come for Congress to act now to make this happen. It's basically what his letter states, and I applaud them for doing it.
I do too. It's great that, and the thing about it is, what done is they've actually stood up for the industry,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
we need more of that across the board. That's the only way to move forward.
Mhm.
Some people are sitting back watching from the fence. Weekly, we're talking about it. We're about it, and we're putting it out there in an open forum.
Well, and I'm going to reach out to these people, see if we can get them on the show because I would love to get into it more with them and let them explain what brought it to about, what they think, maybe steps that they're currently doing. But a great idea of what you mentioned, like for example, we're talking about baseball, right? Any sport, you've got your what they call your fanatics who are watching every game, who know every time a player gets hurt, what's going on, this and that. That's what we have a lot of people here in this cannabis field. They're 100%. They're pushing, they're pushing, they're pushing. Then you got your fans who kind of show up every once in a while, maybe with the family, maybe on a business trip. They don't really understand the game, but they're here. That's great. They win, they lose. I don't care. It's all the same to me. And unfortunately, that's kind of what Congress and the Senate's doing right now. They're kind of that, yeah, we're going to show up. We'll talk about it. If it goes, it goes. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Whatever. I think they're too much of those casual fans right now.
It is. It is. And the only reason why it's like that is because you got states that are flip flopping back and forth, and then you have 21 states, as you mentioned, that
Correct.
have catch clauses set up to where they're saying that you can do it, but they have not legally passed it. So that means you still can get caught up and go to jail.
Yep. And just like we're not going to go back into it, but last week, I don't know if you got to hear some of that discussion. Here in Georgia, they have talked about trying to get it set forth where you can have legal representation over this stuff, because currently it's not allowed in the state of Georgia for a person to give you legal advice on the cannabis industry. So these people are opening, even these CBD stores, technically, they're not allowed to have legal representation or advisement underneath the current statutes in Georgia. How crazy is that?
Very crazy. But once again, that's how they play the game.
Yep. So we've got to change the game so that we can win, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, we are up at that hour, so let you have a couple of closing thoughts where they can connect to you, reach out to you, and just kind of, more of what you got going.
Hey, be on the lookout for Sesh Party 420. Um, it's a big party where
Yes.
we have a number of vendors that will be out servicing the public. We got mental health and health awareness um, outlets available at the sesh. So be on the lookout. We'll post something on our pages from
Yeah.
IG, on our LinkedIn, and also on our Twitter and Facebook as well. So be on the lookout for that. Thank you for tuning in. Follow me at Big Boy Sam with two M's, Sammy M on LinkedIn. And until next week, see ya.
Absolutely. And with the closing thought here, hey, think about this. 420 is on a Thursday. Tax day is 2 days earlier on a Tuesday. So you know what? Do your taxes, get them finalized, enjoy 420. I say take a 4-day weekend and really enjoy it. Make 420 a 4-day event. How about that?
Let's go. Let's go.
All right. We'll get you more information on our social media as soon as we get all of that. Everybody keep safe. Everybody reach one and teach one, and check on your friends. Don't just take "I'm okay, I'm fine" as an example, as the answer. That's the cop out. We all need to reach out and help each other. So I'm going to encourage everybody to at least try to help 3 friends this week, even if that's just, say, over coffee, having a true discussion. Start there. You'll never believe how much you can change over one little saying, one little word. So until next week, reach out to me, DJ NQ, on both Twitter and on Instagram. And guys, we look forward to next Wednesday, and keep this moving.
Let's go.
And
Y'all
enjoy
be
April.
safe out there.
Don't fall for April Fools on Saturday.
All right.
All
Y'all
right,
take
guys. We'll
care.
see you next Wednesday.